What's up guys, Sigley here. In this video we're going to get into the process from going where you are now to where you want to be, and we're going to be talking specifically about freedom versus security, especially when it comes to having a job and quitting that job to attain that life of freedom. So by the end of this video you're going to understand the three things that lead to success when doing this in terms of beliefs, actions and outcomes, and you're going to know whether you have what it takes and know what to do if you really want this. Have you ever felt like building a real online business that drives consistent results, freedom, and control? Online business can feel uncertain, confusing, and overwhelming, but what if you had the vision, mindset, and actions to get from A to B and building your online business step by step so you can live a life of freedom, consistency, and control? But before we get into the video, don't forget to hit subscribe and the notification bell so that when I release more marketing tactics, strategies, and stories, you'll get notified. What if you could just quit your job? In today's video, we're going to be getting into freedom and what freedom means and how people go from working a day job or studying at university to actually getting their freedom and the process through which they go through to get there. I'm sure we have all daydreamed about it at some point, right? You're working a job or you're sitting there studying and you wish you could just be one of those people you see sitting in the cafe on their laptops, or a friend of yours who just seems to be traveling all the time, doing nothing, doing whatever they want. And we daydream about what that life would be like. What would it be like to have complete freedom and choice in doing what we want, where we want, with who we want? How could that even be possible? Why would people want to do that? And do people even go beyond that daydreaming point? Do they actually go and build a system that allows them to live a life of freedom? Well, obviously they do, right? Because there's so many people on planet Earth that there's always going to be someone that actually goes out there and implements their dream and they attain what they wanted. They attain that freedom that they're after. Because why work in a job when you don't have to if you hate it, right? You can do what you want, where you want, with who you want, as long as you go through the process to set up a system that allows you to do it. And in today's world, it's money, right? We all need money to live. We all need money to spend on things if we are living in a capitalist economy, or we all are. So what if you could get that freedom? You no longer have to work a job you hate in a place you don't really like, to buy things for your average apartment, to impress people that aren't really interested in you and you're not interested in them. But sadly, that's really not the common reality, right? Getting that freedom isn't common. Not many people are able to even achieve it. And the reason is, society is always pushing us in a certain direction. Social conditioning warrants that we get a good education, we get a nice job, working in an office somewhere, to buy a house, have children, start a family, get the white picket fence and the dog. Which is really a privilege, right? Just not long ago, you'd have to go out there and fight in a war, or you'd be called to protect your neighborhood from vandals coming in to attack, or you'd be plowing the fields all day, earning no money whilst your king told you what to do. So today's normal lifestyle is really a privilege, and we should see it as that. We should realize that long ago, life was much worse, and life is just getting better and better. In Steven Pinker's book, Enlightenment Now, he talks about how reason, science, humanism, and progress has led to so many good things for society. And he breaks down how we have so much more health, prosperity, safety, just based on all of the data out there, showing the real results of human progress. So yes, today is the best time to be alive. You have the most opportunity ever before right now. So you should be happy with that normal life if it's what you've got right now, because it's so much better than what you would have had in the past. But in Mark Manson's book, Everything is Fucked, a book about hope, he talks about how this great current life has led to depression, and he talks about how the lack of hope has led to depression just because life is so great right now that we no longer have anything to strive for. We no longer have that adventure. We no longer have that risk to our safety, that risk to our freedom, that craving for progress, because we feel like everything's already pretty good and we're content. And when you become content, you become depressed, because basic human nature craves progress. So we're really stuck between a rock and a hard place right now, right? Because life is amazing, it's the best it's ever been, but we feel worse than we've ever felt before because we no longer have that risk, and we crave that adventure, we crave that push, we crave that need to achieve more things. But we don't really need to achieve much more, right? Because life is already pretty good. And that's why in the West right now, depression is on the rise. It's skyrocketing. It's getting worse and worse and worse. So it's all a little bit of a paradox, right? Things are the best they've ever been before, but we feel the worst that we've ever felt before. And I think this really comes down to freedom versus security. On one hand, we want to have the security of a job, a stable environment, people in our lives that are committed, and things in our life that we're committed to, so that we have that security in our life. But at the same time, we want freedom, adventure, and risk, because that's what brings the excitement to our lives. If everything is secure all the time, we're going to get bored. And when we get bored, we start thinking a little bit too much about things. And when we think too much, we make ourselves depressed, because then we start thinking about the fact that we're going to die one day. So that's really our challenge now, is finding that balance between freedom and security, finding what the right balance is for us. Because some of us prefer security more. Like, we don't really have that need for adventure as much as others. We don't have that need for freedom as much as others. We like to have a stable life, and we like everything to be as stable as possible. Whereas others like full freedom. They don't care about security that much. They're massive risk takers, and they just want to go out there and adventure forever. But I would say the majority of us are somewhere in between. So it's about figuring out what parts of your life you want to be more adventurous in and which parts you want to be more secure in, and then balancing those two things out to get the perfect situation for yourself. But it can be difficult, right? And in this video, we're not going to focus so much on the security side of things, because that's really the norm. If you go about the normal social conditioning route of getting a nice education, a nice job, a house and a family, that is the secure side. So you're probably already well versed on how to go about that, because your parents and society as a whole would have already taught you how to do that. But let's talk about the freedom side of it. How can you achieve freedom? How can you quit your job and live a life of freedom? Because let's be honest, most of freedom in today's world comes from having the money to spend on the things to allow you to do what you want, where you want, with who you want. It's not about getting as much money as you can and filling up your bank account. It's just about getting that system set up to fund your life of freedom, so you can do what you want to do and you no longer have to work under someone else's orders. But the first thing you need to do is commit to that path of freedom. Commit to allowing yourself to go down that path and achieve that level of freedom that you're after. Because if you crave that risk in your life, that adventure in your life, then you owe it to yourself to create that system of freedom. The problem is society, education, the media, your family has brainwashed you into believing certain things and going about your life in a certain way. That's called social conditioning. And for the most part, it's a good thing, because it teaches us not to put the hand on the stove, right? But it can also be a bad thing, because it can hold you back. And then when you try to move outside of that socially conditioned norm, everyone around you will try to pull you back down like crabs in a bucket. So it's super difficult to do it, because everyone around you is not doing it. They don't believe what you need to believe, and they don't do what you need to do to get that life of freedom. So you're already starting off with a massive disadvantage of the people that you're around and society as a whole not believing that it's possible. And having all of these people around you doubting you always leads to you doubting yourself. It can be extremely difficult to hold on to beliefs that no one around you believes, and then having to go through the process of taking the actions that fit with your new belief whilst everyone else is telling you that it's a waste of time. So depending on where you're starting off from, this can be more or less difficult, but at the end of the day, it's going to take a transformation. You're going to need to go from who you are now with your current set of beliefs to that person that you want to be, believing what they believe, doing what they do to achieve that life of freedom that they were able to achieve. And transformation is possible. Just look at those around you that you see. Even if it's just online, look at all of the people that have been able to attain this freedom. Do you think that they're that much different than you? Do you think they're that much more talented than you? They're not. No one is cut from a different cloth. Most people are average, and most average people can achieve great things if they go down a certain process. So you just need to look at these people and realize that they're no different than you or me, and then believe that you can achieve what they were able to as well, so that you can start moving down that path of transformation and becoming the person you need to be to achieve those things. Because whilst they may not be cut from a different cloth, whilst they may be the same as you or me, they still are doing things that you're not doing. They're still doing the things they need to do to achieve the things they're able to achieve, and you need to do those things too. But belief always comes before action. So in order to achieve a life of freedom, you first need to believe that it's possible. And then once you believe that it's possible, that energy is going to be there for you to put into the actions to carry out the steps and build that freedom system. You just need to realize that you are not really you. Your beliefs, what you're doing right now, where you're at in life, it's not who you are. It's just simply the current life situation that you have, and it can change, but your behaviors and your beliefs need to change first, right? You need to actually do the things to get you to a different life situation. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. This is a gradual change that you need to implement on your day-to-day by slowly breaking away the beliefs that are limiting you, slowly stop the actions that are stopping you, and start to build those beliefs that are going to empower you to take the actions necessary to get the results you want. So what is this process of transformation? What do you actually need to do to go through the process from where you are now and that secure lifestyle to that life of freedom? So the first thing is your beliefs, right? Whatever your beliefs are going to lead to anything else that happens in your life. Because you've probably heard of The Secret, right? The idea that whatever you think in your mind is going to manifest and appear before you. But it's not a bunch of rubbish. At the end of the day, it's actually quite true when you think about it, right? Because whatever you believe is going to happen because it will affect what actions you do. For example, if you believe that you like ice cream better than a sandwich, you're going to buy ice cream instead of a sandwich when you go to the ice cream and sandwich shop, right? So that's a really basic example of a direct impact that a belief is having on action. And that's not just on a basic level, that occurs in every part of your life. Everything that you do, everything that happens to you is based on those beliefs. So in order to start taking actions that we want more because of the values that we place on those actions, we need to start changing our beliefs. But how do we do that? Well, first of all, we need to look at what our limiting beliefs are, meaning the beliefs that are holding us back from achieving what we want, and then start chipping away at them with results. So the way we do that is we might say, for example, we have a belief that we can't lose weight, right? So then we put down that belief, I can't lose weight. And then we start going about the actions that are required to lose weight, even though we truly believe that we can't do it, right? So we'll slowly start to take the actions necessary to lose weight. We might eat less chips. We might go for a run once a week, just small actions, and then we build up those actions over time, and then we start to see the results. We start to see that we are losing weight. Then our belief will change because we've given proof, not promises. You can't just promise your mind something and then expect it to believe it. You need to give it proof that that is the reality, and the reality will change the beliefs. It's not just what you're doing as well. It's not just your own actions that affect your beliefs. It's what you're seeing around you. So if everyone around you is saying that it's not possible and everyone around you isn't doing it, they're not achieving it either, then you're going to believe that it's not possible. But if you surround yourself with people that do believe it's possible, and you surround yourself with people that are actually doing it and achieving it, you are going to believe that it's possible too. So over time, as you slowly start to build up the right beliefs, you're going to start taking the right actions. And the problem here is figuring out how much action you need to take and what the right actions are, okay? So every single action you take is going to have a certain outcome, right? And then over time, you'll start to discover what the right actions are to get the right outcomes that you want, and what the actions that you don't want to do are because you get bad outcomes. So the ideal way to go about this process is to take massive action. And what that means is just taking a high volume of actions, not just in one area, but in multiple areas, testing out multiple things until you find the right course of action. Fail fast forward. The faster you fail, the more forward progress you're going to make, because you're going to see what outcomes you get from the actions that you take, and then you're going to discover what those right actions are, propelling you forward so much faster than if you were really slow about it and thought too much about every single action you were going to take. So by taking massive action, you can get results fast, whether positive or negative, but that will propel you forward in the learning process to figure out what will work for you, and that will get you to the end goal faster. So you don't want to overthink everything. You don't want to think every step you take. You just want to look at something, make any decision, and move forward as fast as you can. So fixing your beliefs and taking massive action is the key to get from where you are now to where you want to be. And that's in any area of life, but what we're talking about here is freedom versus security. Going on from that socially conditioned normal life of getting an education and getting a normal job to trying to gain that freedom of having an online business or an online job, whatever it may be, so that you can be where you want, with who you want, doing what you want. Because coming out the other side, from where you are now to attaining that new set of beliefs, taking those right actions, and building a system that gives you that freedom may sound crazy. I know it did to me and it does to everyone else that does it. But at the end of the day, no one is cut from a different cloth. What one man or woman can do, another can do. And you can do it as long as you go about the process of creating your own power, empowering your beliefs, and then going through the actions and making progress. The problem is that no one ever even breaks out of that belief system usually, because it's so difficult to cut the negative beliefs of the people around you, society as a whole, telling you to get that education, get that job, and be safe, when you know that what you really want is freedom. And if you really do want freedom, you owe it to yourself to go through that process of breaking down those limiting beliefs, creating new empowering beliefs, and then setting up that system to drive your freedom in whatever kind of online business it may be. Just remember, breaking out of the matrix isn't the norm. Not many people do this. Not many people achieve this, even though a lot of people know about it. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to, first of all, not really wanting it enough. You need to want it enough in order to actually go through the pain of creating those new beliefs, getting rid of the limiting beliefs, and taking the right actions to set the system up to drive your freedom. Because if you really wanted this, you would do it. And if you've been thinking about doing it for years now, you're probably not going to do it. I'm just being honest. If you haven't done it yet, if you haven't taken enough actions yet, if you haven't taken massive action to achieve what you want to achieve, you're probably not going to. Chances are it's not going to happen unless you find that leverage to do it. And I recommend finding that leverage right now. Start taking the necessary actions to achieve what you want to achieve, because quitting your job and attaining freedom isn't easy, right? Because you're comfortable right now, you're content, you're pretty happy with where you're at. And that's most people, you know. Most people live a life of quiet discomfort. They're kind of unsatisfied with where they're at. They want more, but at the end of the day, it's not so painful because we're living in a very privileged world right now. We're relaxed with our jobs, our fridge is full of food, we don't have to do much, we're not going to die, so there's no need for us to progress. You really need to put that evolutionary pressure on yourself, because you no longer have that pressure to survive and replicate, you know. Back in the day, you would have to be out there hunting for wild boar and woolly mammoths or whatever, and today you can just go to your job and sit there all day and then come home and binge watch TV or Netflix or whatever you want to do, go on Tinder. But because of that, we need to put the evolutionary pressure on ourselves. We need to tell ourselves every day, okay, now I want you to do this, now I want you to take these actions, because if we take these actions, we're going to achieve this. The problem is everyone around you doesn't believe that you can do it, and you don't really believe you can do it, so you don't take the actions to do it. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a vicious cycle, and you can either turn that vicious cycle into a virtuous cycle by surrounding yourself with people and ideas and information that empowers you to achieve what you want to achieve, and then setting up that leverage to put the pressure on yourself to achieve it, or you can stay content and enjoy your secure life and just quietly be a little bit dissatisfied with it and not make any progress forward. It's really up to you, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because we're all going to end up in the same place. But to end this video on a positive note, if you really want this, I recommend going through that process of creating new beliefs, setting up the right environment around you for instilling those right beliefs, and taking massive action to achieve what you want to achieve, because you don't have that long, right? You only live once. You may as well do what you want to do and do the most you can do to achieve what you want to achieve. So that's the video, guys. Hopefully that provides a little bit of insight around why you aren't where you want to be, why you're still working in that day job, even though you know this freedom lifestyle exists and you know that you really want this freedom lifestyle. If that's not you though, you probably just enjoyed me ranting on looking like an idiot for a while. So either way, hopefully the video is entertaining, and I'll talk to you in the next one.